It feels like we're all drowning in complexity these days. AI, genetics, quantum computing. These aren't just buzzwords, right? They're literally shaping our future. But how do we get our heads around what they actually mean? Well, the answer isn't more data, it's better stories. So let's dive into how we can turn the impossibly complex into something instantly compelling.
I mean, think about it. This quote from the Journal of Science Communication really hits the nail on the head. Our entire world is basically filtered through a screen. It's where we learn, it's where we connect, and yeah, it's the ultimate battlefield for our attention.
And what's the one language that totally dominates those screens? It's video. A whopping 75% of all internet traffic is now video. That's not just a trend, it's the new reality. If you want to get an idea across today, you pretty much have to make it visual.
But here's where it gets tricky. It's one thing to make a fun, entertaining video. It's a whole other ballgame to explain something that's really dense or abstract or maybe even a little intimidating. That right there, that is the ultimate storytelling challenge.
And filmmaker Dennis Barbas just frames this perfectly. The goal isn't just to throw information at people, it's to create an actual emotional connection. Because the ideas that really stick with us, the powerful ones, aren't just understood, they're felt. That's the secret sauce. So, let's put that theory to the test, shall we? How on earth do you create that emotional connection with a topic that on the surface just seems so technical and dry? For example, how would you tell a story about this? Okay, so what you're looking at is a diagram of lab-grown brain cells learning to play the video game Pong. Yeah, you heard that right. This is a huge deal in something called wetware computing, which is basically building computers using living brain cells. It raises all these massive questions about what intelligence even is. But be honest, when you look at this diagram, do you feel anything? Probably not, right? It's just data. So let's look at two toolkits for turning this data into a real story.
First up, let's grab the Artist Toolkit. This approach has nothing to do with logic or spreadsheets. No, this is all about intuition, about crafting an emotional experience. We're going to borrow some secrets from filmmakers to see how they make an audience truly feel a story.
And from that perspective, it all boils down to four key things. It's a pretty simple but incredibly powerful formula. You start with a compelling story, you back it up with the right music, you enhance it with deliberate color, and you bring it all to life with immersive sound.
So everything, and I mean everything, starts with the story. That's your emotional foundation. Before you even think about cameras, the one question you have to ask is, what do I want the audience to feel? Because without a strong emotional core, even the most beautiful visuals are just, well, they're empty calories.
Next, let's talk about music. And here's a little insider tip. Filmmakers often choose the soundtrack before they even shoot a single scene. Why do they do that? Because music is the emotional blueprint. It sets the pace, the tone, the entire mood that all the visuals will be built on top of. Then there's color. Think of this as your atmosphere control knob. Like the cold, sterile blues you see in a sci-fi movie versus the warm, golden light of a nostalgic family drama. Color isn't just a filter you slap on at the end. It's a powerful emotional trigger that shapes how we feel about the whole story. And finally, sound design. This is truly the unsung hero of storytelling. It's that subtle whoosh of a camera move or the quiet hum of a room that makes a scene feel real and tangible. Great sound design doesn't just support what you see, it literally transports you right into the middle of the story. Okay, so the Artist Toolkit gives us the feel, the emotion. But for super complex topics, emotion isn't quite enough, right? We also need clarity, we need structure. And that is where our second toolkit comes in. The scientist's method, which is an evidence-based way of making ideas, well, stick.
Researchers have a cool name for this idea, a sci-commercial. The whole concept is to borrow principles from marketing, which, let's face it, is amazing at making ideas memorable, and apply them to communicating science. It's all about packaging complex info in a way that's easy to digest and, just as importantly, easy to share.
And the heart of this whole method is this fantastic acronym, SUCCESS. To make any idea truly stick, you need to make sure it's simple, unexpected, concrete, credible, emotional, and you wrap the whole thing in a compelling story. This isn't just a list of good suggestions, it's a proven recipe that just plain works. All right, so now we have our two toolkits. We've got the artist's tools for emotion and the scientist's formula for clarity. So, time for the real test. Let's combine them and try to tackle that impossible topic, the science behind AI-driven immortality. So where do we even begin? Well, we start with the U in success, the unexpected. Most of us hear the word immortality and our brains immediately go to science fiction, but a quote like this flips the script. It reframes it as a real, emerging scientific possibility. And right away, it grabs our attention and sets the stage for our story.
Okay, next up, we have to make this huge idea concrete. Immortality is a pretty fuzzy concept on its own. So researchers break it down into 3 distinct pathways: generated, digital, and physical. And just like that, this massive, abstract idea becomes a set of clear, understandable categories. It's not so intimidating anymore.
Now, how do we make it credible? Well, a visual like this timeline is a great way to do it. Now look, this isn't a crystal ball, it's not a guarantee, but what it does do is ground these wild-sounding concepts in a potential reality. It helps shift the idea from if this could happen to when, which makes it feel a lot more plausible.
And to really nail that credibility, you anchor it to technologies that exist today. We're talking about brain-computer interfaces, AI-powered gene editing, nanorobots. These aren't just far-off concepts anymore. They are the real-world building blocks that could actually make that timeline possible. It turns science fiction into an engineering problem.
So, you see what happens when you combine these 2 toolkits? By mixing the artist's toolkit for emotion with the scientist's formula for clarity, we can take even a super dense scientific diagram and turn it into a compelling story. And this idea is so much bigger than just this one topic.
And that, right there, is the ultimate takeaway. In a world where things are just getting more and more complex, our ability to tell clear, human-centered stories isn't just a nice-to-have skill anymore. It's an absolute necessity. It's how we make sense of it all, how we debate it, and how we decide what kind of future we actually want to build.
So I'll just leave you with this one final thought. The tools we have to create our future are becoming more powerful every single day. The real challenge isn't just about what we can build, it's about what stories we choose to tell about it. Because in the end, those stories, they're going to shape everything.